Time now to take a look at what's been making the headlines all week in our Reporters Rewind. Today's guest at the round table are freelance journalist Nicholas Niarchos, who's written for The Guardian and just wrote an Olympics piece for the New York Times. Also with us is veteran sports journalist Roy S. Johnson. He's the author of Ballers, Gamers, and Scoundrels. And joining us at the table as well is Mike Bako, who is the sports editor at dailynational.com. Welcome to all of you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
It's good to have all of you here. Good to see you again.
Right.
Yes, indeed. Got a lot to talk about, and I want to start, let's see, where do we want to start? I want to start with the Syria peace talks, because that really has dominated the headlines all week long. You know, is there a chance, do you guys think, based on what you're seeing and reading, to make any type of progress during these talks? Who wants to jump into that
You
first?
have to believe there's a chance. Otherwise, people wouldn't have come together to try to make this happen. I mean, this has been going on now for 3 years, and at least 120,000 people dead, tens of thousands of people in prisons, and all sorts of manner of bad things happening to them in prison. So to come together and try to get the government and the resistance to come together and at least find a transitional government, it all depends on whether President Assad agrees to step in or step out. It seems that that's the major key sticking point. If they can come to some agreement for that transition, then maybe we have a chance.
I mean, I think that we may have a chance. Of course, there's always a chance. But at the same time, I think the spirit in which these talks is taking place is an incredibly negative one. I mean, you don't have Iran at the table. Iran's a major player. You also, you know, you don't really see people who are who are committed to putting together a peace talk. It just looks like an opportunity for more people to shout at each other.
And it's a difficult situation when the rules aren't even laid out the right way. Both sides not agreeing on the rules. You would think that with so much at stake that at the very least they could come to some sort of understanding of what the rules, what's the game plan going to be. So how can they make much progress if they can't even get the most basic, simple thing down?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because they disagree about what the goal of these talks are, why they're there.
Right. So it's difficult when you don't have that same goal to reach an endpoint where everyone will be happy. If everyone's going into it unhappy, no one's going to leave happy.
Yeah, well, the good thing is at least they have agreed to sit face-to-face on tomorrow, which is a lot it's a long distance from where they came on the very first day,
right.
when there was, you know, this verbal sparing going on.
I mean, I think the spirit in which these talks has come together is also confusing. I mean, all the hotels in Geneva were booked up because there was a luxury watch conference there. So this is a Geneva conference happening in Montreux. I don't know if we're really seeing something that's consistent, well put together, and you know, we really don't have all the parties at the table. I've been following on Twitter quite carefully a group which is calling for the Kurds to be at the table. I think there are a lot of different factions in the Syrian opposition as well, and I think that they feel left out. And there's even, you know, factionality within Assad's own camp.
And if that's the case, we'll almost never have the opportunity to have everyone come to the table, because it's almost impossible to get all those groups, because they can't even agree on who's in which group.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so,
some of the rebels wanted to be there, some refused to be there, so they certainly have a long way to go. And I want to move the conversation forward just a little bit. And speaking of Russia, of course, Vladimir Putin has a lot on his plate, not only shepherding these talks with Syria, but also putting on a safe Olympics in Sochi. So I want to start with you, Nicholas, on this. What's the likelihood of some unfortunate terrorist catastrophic event?
Well, I mean, as I said before, I mean, there's always a chance of something happening, but I mean, I think even Mitt Romney today said that he would send his family to the Olympics. You know, he said that he would feel safe. Athens in 2001 was declared the most unsafe country by diplomatic posting by the United States Department of State. And you know, the 2004 Olympics went off without a hitch. So obviously there's an increased threat, but they put so much into security in this. I don't think there's going to be a huge, you know,
Yeah, but on the other hand, the man who ran security for the Atlanta Olympics has already said that this is the highest alert for any Olympics in history. And for him, he says it's not a matter of whether something will happen, but how bad it is. A lot of things have transpired, threats, supposed threats against other countries, warning for them not to come. There've been word that certain terrorists have slipped into the area, and so there's just major concerns. I guess the real issue is, how do people want to live their lives? Do they want to live in fear and faith? And you know, if I had a kid there, I'd be over there with them.
But you see a lot of parents saying that they won't go there. And I think the big difference, I think, at least from a media perception and a perception of why a U.S. parent wouldn't go and be with their athlete, daughter or son, is that they're seeing things currently going on there. So, you know, it's one thing. Athens was the most dangerous of all time leading into it, but you actually see terrorist activities going on within the last few weeks and within the last few months there. That's really scary.
Well, you know, what seems kind of telltale to me, and tell me what you guys think about this. Of course, there's been much talk about that ring of steel, and that it will be very, very secure, but there's speculation that perhaps some of these perpetrators are already inside that ring. And what makes me think that that might be true is all of a sudden this week, these wanted posters went up on the inside. It didn't engender confidence to me.
Well, these are the times in which we live, and no matter what big event you have around the world, you're going to have this potential threat. So again, it's just a matter of what you believe, how safe you feel. I can't imagine someone's going to let their child go and not go themselves, if nothing else, to show support.
But in some of those cases, it's the athlete themselves that are encouraging their family to stay back home, which is very, very honorable and noble of those athletes. Speaks to their sportsmanship in that regard. Let's, in our last few minutes, talk about, we just celebrated MLK Day on Monday. His birthday was just a couple days before that. And so I want to pose to you all, and I guess because you're the brother at the table,
All right.
I'm going to start with you, Roy. What do you think Martin Luther King would march for today?
Well, we all know Martin Luther King would be 85 years old today, but let's talk about the young King. The one that really wasn't embraced by everyone. He was called a rebel. He was called out by a lot of the old school blacks at that time, thought he was a little out of his element, and everybody from the FBI on really called him almost, you know, someone who was anti-American. I think that King, if he were around today, again, would battle for the poor, would march for the poor. The economic disparity in this country is the worst ever in history, and he would certainly march for that. He would march against war, just like he spoke out against Vietnam. And again, you know, with wars going on around this nation and things that we're involved with around the world, he would speak out against that. And certainly, he would speak out just for those who you know, don't have the opportunity to speak out for themselves, just as he did then.
How much of a voice do you think he would have for the immigrant population? You talk about those people who don't have a voice. America, land of opportunity. So many people want to build walls to keep them out. I have a feeling that he would want to build a bridge to help them come in. What do you think about that?
There's absolutely no question about it, because a lot of people forget that the movement was very integrated. It was not just a black movement. It was an American movement. And so I think he would emphasize that. He would be marching with whoever really didn't have a voice at the table, who didn't have the opportunity to speak for themselves. And I think immigration would certainly be high on his list.
I mean, moving beyond America, I mean, I'm the foreigner at the table, and I mean, I would hope that as well, had Dr. King been here these days, you know, he would have focused on international inequality. I mean, we see there was a recent Oxfam report that stated that you know, the world's richest 85 people have more than the world's poorest 3.5 billion people, and combined, exactly. So I wonder what sort of international focus as well he might have
Well,
had.
he certainly would have had a lot on his plate, because in some cases, some of those issues are still here and going strong. I want to thank Nicholas Niarchos, Roy Johnson, Mike Bako. Thank you all for being here. Have a great weekend.
Thanks so much.
And you're watching Arise America.